Okay. And hello, we're back. Let's share my screen, which is not the right screen. So hold on. Actually, you guys are going to wait. I'm going to force people into my nightmare. Oh, I can't. Okay.
Hang on.
Here we go. Now let me go. Here we go. We are back. Yay. Hello, the magical properties of Jasmine. An affinity for quartz, and we determined that indeed that was correct. And let me move you back to the center so that I am not obnoxiously looking at my little box. That would be horrible.
Excuse me.
So Jasmine charges quartz, so you're supposed to keep a piece of quartz with Jasmine to freshen them, and then the other way as well. So they work to help each other. So it's also good for creativity, bringing innovative ideas, astral travel. It's also an aphrodisiac, and it's good in love and sex magic. To attract a spiritual love, you can use it. And you should make 2 red sachets of jasmine and put it under both sides of the mattress for good sex. So
Love that.
if you're having sex, that's something you should do. Anybody want me to hit you with it? So sexy. Okay, you can use oil to increase the potency of love spells. Also for wealth and dreams. So for prophetic dreams. And it's supposed to also promote sleep and psychic dreams. You can use, again, the sachet under the pillow. So the medicinal properties are weird. So for the essential oils, they say that it's an antiviral, an antibiotic, an antifungal, and an immune booster, and the leaves are an antioxidant. So, yeah, there's not, and it's interesting because I don't know if I even said this, but like jasmine tea, like if you drink jasmine tea, it's the little buds, like right before like right when they're about to open, when they're little balls, that's what jasmine tea is. It's like the little bud balls. So there. But it's used in aromatherapy. It's supposed to be a relaxing sedative in aromatherapy. It's good for depression and uterine pain. Oh, good. Wow. Respiratory problems as well, and it will give you a restful sleep. So externally, though, you can also use the essential oil externally because it's antimicrobial, even against staph, like perhaps, like people have said. I'm not going to, don't quote me. And I think I missed one. Hold on. There's something underneath something that I can't. Can you see that last one? Because I can't see it.
I just see antifungal.
Yeah, antifungal. So supposedly even against candida.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's also calming, like an infusion is supposed to calm your nerves. And of course, the aphrodisiac quality. So 2 tablespoons of flour to a cup of water, and you're supposed to drink 1/4 of a cup 4 times a day for aphrodisiac. Also, lungs for coughs. You can use the syrup of the flowers in honey. So make a honey with it. And it's supposed to be good for weight loss and to boost your metabolism. You can drink the infusion, the jasmine tea. And these were my sources. Of course, the same 3 sources for the chakras, and it's supposed to be heart chakra, but of course I have solar plexus chakra because I obviously did not review anything. And it was But the nettle was used, if you'll even know it, look, Papa Nico even featured in
Mm,
I
yep.
take it where
Papa
I can get
Nico.
it. Exactly. Les Dawson store, like all over the place.
Mm,
And then there's the Jasmine ones as well.
yes.
So, and even there's like a scholarly article, nettle as a distinct Bronze Age textile plant
Mm,
that I reviewed for us all. Okay,
nice.
so let me
Cool.
stop sharing and then we can switcheroo.
Move on. Okay.
I need some water. I feel like I just talked myself silly.
Cheers. It's actually supposed to be bad luck to cheers with water, so it's good we didn't clink.
What let me ask you a question. What kind of
Yeah.
water bottle are you drinking out of? Like what's your favorite?
It's so I have actually been using this one, Jesus, for like 3 years. So I have one little story time. I have one that I bought off of Etsy that was like an insulated one, not like a Stanley, but the cups that were like cool before this all the Stanley hype. But it was like insulated, but I bought it from Etsy and it had like red blood looking splatters all over it and it had like cards of like horror slashers and I love that cup, but now it's kind of like my coffee cup. So this is my water cup. I just needed like a bottle and so I got it from um like Ralph's or something. I needed one, and so I just ran to the grocery store across the street from my school. And but I love it. It's so like it's lasted forever. It's called HD Designed Outdoors, and it's just metal. And then I just put a bunch of stickers on it. But
That's like literally that's how I got mine. Mine's like it's double insulated metal and I literally got it at Ross for $10. It's like a rando. Like I liked I
yeah,
bought them like for everybody in my family, one for everybody because I liked them and like they ended up being the best water bottles ever and I could and then I went and tried to re-buy the same ones and they don't even make them in these size anymore. They make it that's why they were at Ross because now they only make them in these little itty bitty sizes.
yeah. This one's pretty like small, which is kind of a bummer. But it's nice because I take this one. I mean, I drink out of this at home. Like this is my water cup at home. But I also this is what I take with me to school. And so it's nice that it's skinny because it can like fit in my bag. But yeah, I drop this thing like every day. There's no dents on it. I even have like Mountain Rose
Oh, that's
little
rad.
sticker
I love
here.
that. Perfect. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but
Such a nice gift.
best little water thing ever.
I know. Yes.
So good. Okay. So ooh, I'm burning my monthly altar candle.
Hmm.
I was like, are we recording already?
Yeah.
Um, and I burn it at the end of the month, and I didn't burn it yesterday, so I'm burning it today. But I need to put it out because it's in a bronze candle holder, and it's beeswax, and it sticks to that bronze holder if I let it burn down all the way. Okay. Anyways, back to heart chakra. Oh, you have to let me share.
Oh, if I can do this with my non-dominant hand. Okay. You should be able to share now.
Okay. So, as I said previously, I only did one plant,
Okay.
one herb plant, whatever you want to call it, but
Hmm.
it's pretty lengthy, so buckle in.
Yay.
Okay, so heart chakra.
I love it.
Rose is what we are doing today.
Yay.
Okay, so I also want to say there, I feel like Rose is one of, if not the top contender for like just history and like uses. And so I feel like I barely tapped into it. I mean, I think I have like 30 slides and there's still so much to be said about it. Um, so we're just kind of scratching the surface, but okay. So some basics. First is we have the Latin name. Now there are rose is like a whole family, right? It's not like a specific plant.
Rosa.
Yeah, Rosa is like what we're
Several
going with.
SSP, several
Yeah,
species.
Rosa. Yeah. But I'm going to start with the Rosa ruby rubiginosa. Rubiginosa. Also, I only really found two like folk names for rose. It's often just called like rose or the specific type of rose, so like dog rose, you know. But these are the only two folk names that I've really seen. And
Roja.
then, huh?
Rohaze. That's like a name. Oh my gosh, I've never seen that name before in my life. That's Brooks, as I my dear friend, my friend Brooke, who passed away, she had it's somebody who was associated with her family. Her daughter's stepmother is named Rohaze, and
Oh,
I had never
yeah.
heard that name before, and
Hmm.
it's there. That's how you spell it. Even I think is Rohaze.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
I know.
Awesome. That's cool.
Means rose. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know
Oh,
the Rohaze
little
meant
Brooke.
rose. I know.
Okay. So then parts used are the petals, the rose hips, which are usually from the dog rose plant, the roots, and the root bark. So when we talk about roses, there are generally three categories. So we have the wild rose. We have the old world roses, which are the roses that were introduced before 1867, and then we have the modern roses, which were introduced after 1867. So the first rose species to ever really be like put to paper, like described for science, came from the Florissant fossil beds in Teller County, Colorado. So what happened, and this is what they look like. So in 1883, there's a paleobotanist, Charles Lescaro. And so he was writing like a scientific paper about like fossil flora in the Western Territories. And he got a bunch of samples from different people. But one of them was from, I should have put these on a different slide. We'll come back to this to look at the pictures. But the first one came from this woman, Charlotte Hill. Now, Charlotte Hill grew up on like this little, or it was not little, it was lots of land, but like this ranch. And she, when she was young, liked to dig up fossils. There was fossils everywhere, all types of flora fossils all over her parents' property. And so she would dig them up and she would um, give them to like paleobotanists, or she would like sell them to collectors when she was older to help pay for the ranch and things like that. And so she had given the man, Charles, who was writing this book, she had given him this rose fossil. And this was the first like fossil, like physical fossil that we saw of the rose. And so she had given it to him. It hadn't been named yet, obviously. And so he named it after her.
Oh
Sorry,
wow.
got to feed my little wild squirrels. They're just like hungry little guys. So he
So
named it
that's
after.
how a rose was named a rose.
Yeah. So that's why so Rosa Hille, and so that's how he. That's yeah. He basically named it after her.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I
Okay.
know, isn't that amazing?
Yes.
And so here we have so we don't have a fossil of like the leafy bits. We don't have a good one of like the flower, but we do have good ones of the leaf. And then we also had just some like fossils of like petals that were near it. And so we had to put together the image of like what the rose itself looked like, but we know exactly what like the leaf and the vines and stuff looked like.
Wow.
Oh, and this is what um, this is basically like the closest thing that we the closest picture that we can see of this Rosa Hille is this one. It's the 5-petal rose. What else? Oh yeah, so this is just me talking about her.
Okay.
So I already talked about all that. Okay. So, fossil records show that roses existed 30 million years ago in Europe. So the fossil that we had, which was from Colorado, is obviously not going to be like the first rose, but it was the first like fossil of the rose that we had seen. So other information of roses came from just like writings and like drawings, but we had the first fossil, and it there's something else I was just gonna say about that and I forgot. Yeah, okay. And so 30 million years ago in Europe, Asia, North America, so the first species had 5 petals, which we saw in the last picture. And then we have the other like old world species of rose. So there are four like old world roses. Well, 5 including the one that we just talked about. And they all have like 5 petals. So these are known as like the 5-petal roses. These are all the old world roses.
Well,
So we have the Rosa Hille, which we just saw on the last one. Um, then we have the dog rose, which is this one, the Rosa canina. And this is also the one that the rose hips come from. We have the Scotch rose, which is the Rosa, I don't know, pimpinal flora. The French rose, which is Rosa glauca, and then the Carolina rose, Rosa carolina. So those 4 plus the Rosa Hille, these 5 roses are basically the like ancestors of our current day roses. All of our current modern roses are some type of combination of at least 2 of these 5 like OG original roses.
I'm dying to see what we've got these humongous rose bushes. Like
Oh,
there's a rose bush outside my window that is taller than my house.
wow. Interesting.
It is huge. And then there's
Huh.
one out in the front yard that is huge as well. And then there's one in the side yard, and they're different. But
Hmm.
they're shrubby. They're not like
Yeah.
they're different. So I
Hmm.
wonder what they are. I know I'm gonna have
Yeah. Interesting.
to get back to you about.
Okay, so the first domesticated roses we believe were deliberately cultivated. So it wasn't like just happened to like be there. They were deliberate. And it's believed that it happened around 3000 BCE in China. And so in China, they were making a lot of, with these roses, these domesticated or cultivated roses, they were making like a lot of rose water, which we'll come back to, a lot of like um, perfumed oils for like, just like body scent, but also as like medicinal purposes. And then like the rose water was also used for medicinal purposes as well, and then as confetti for celebration. So this was like the original type of confetti. We'll talk later about how a lot of like confetti and celebrations now are like birdseed, but before it was roses. Roses were the like original confetti. So Confucius, the wow, philosopher Confucius said that roses were growing in the gardens of the imperial palace around 500 BCE. And also, China was the only source of yellow roses, or originally were the only source of yellow roses. So all yellow roses stemmed from China, essentially.
Ah,
Like those came from China.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay.
My favorite. Oh
So,
my gosh, we used to give my dad a rose bush for like every birthday, and they were like
aw,
his front yard, and I know when he moved out of that house, it was sad.
That is sad.
I know.
Hmm. You could give them like little mini rose bushes now, like the little tiny roses. Okay, so in 600 BCE, the Greek poet Sappho wrote in the poem Ode to the Roses that this was considered the queen of flowers. And so we see it mentioned now that this is the like the highest of the flowers, right? Like this is like the flowery flower that there is. And then in Roman homes, petals were used to carpet the floors to help with the smell, and then also to fill bath water for confetti. And then we even start seeing them to be eaten.
Nice.
Okay, so a rose hanging from a ceiling of Greek and Roman like civic meetings places symbolize secrecy. And so we can still see this even to this day, where there are like meeting places that have rose decorations. And this is known as sub rosa. And this idea of sub rosa came from the Greek and Romans, where they would put roses like in their like the meeting places where like men would go to like talk about secret stuff because so grand houses, courtrooms, Catholic confessionals even still have them. And it's a reminder that the conversations that happen in this place should be confidential. And so the idea here is that it was believed that modern roses, I mean, even before, but now, especially with modern roses, how they have so many petals, it was believed that the petals were so dense that secrets would be held in those petals and they couldn't escape. And so the rose came to symbolize like holding in secrets and not letting secrets out. And so they started to be carved in like all of these big talk places. So sub rosa means like under the rose. And this is still even, they call it a quasi legal, meaning like it's not actual legal terminology, but kind of like a, I don't know, still used like in those areas, like legal terms saying that like we're not going to talk about this. Okay.
Oh, that's so cool. Mhm.
Isn't that interesting? I just found that out too. But when I was looking for these pictures, you can find tons of like paintings and carvings, even back to the like Greek and Roman architecture of like roses in these places. It's really cool. Okay, so the Romans grew roses extensively in large public gardens. And then we have the Rosa alba, which is like the common name is the white rose of York. This could be found in the gardens of like nobles and monks in medieval Europe. And so this was, I'm not exactly sure why the white rose specifically. I mean, we'll get into the colors and stuff later, but I'm not sure why they chose like the white rose. So this is a picture of like the Rosa alba. You already ate so many. You're not getting any more. I'm sorry. Okay. The squirrel, I have this window right here, and the squirrel comes up and sticks her little face right there when she wants more food.
Really cute. I've already fed you.
I've already given you like 10 almonds. Your little body can't even handle that much. Okay.
It's irresponsible for me to give you
No, she's like this big. No. Okay, so then we go to France. So one of the greatest, like grandest rose gardens of all time, even still to this day, was like kept and maintained by Empress Josephine of France at her residence in Malmention. And so this was like a massive garden. This is the rose garden. This is her place, but this is present day, obviously. So this wasn't like, back at like in like 1810 or whatever. This is present day, but you can still see just the sheer number of roses even today. And so then at the time of her death in 1814, it contained about 250 species and varieties of rose. And at that time, that was every known species and variety of rose at the time. So in her garden at the time of her death, she had every type of rose in that garden, which is phenomenal.
Fabulous.
And then we have two artists, Pierre Joseph Rideau and Claude Antony Tory. And so they had paintings that they collectively called Les Roses, which were paintings of each individual type of rose that she had. I
Oh,
was going to try to find some to put in here, but it's kind of just like, so they're in books. It's not just like one painting. It's like each rose had its own page. And they're very, like, oh, I'm drawing a blank. What are we called? The botanical illustrations. They look kind of like botanical illustrations, but it's really cool. Oh my gosh, look at, can you see her?
oh,
Her
oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
little chunkers.
I
Okay. Um, so in the late 1700s and early 1800s, rose breeding was revolutionized, where we now have the Rosa chinensis, which is the China rose that had been in Asia and had been brought over to Europe. And then Europeans just kind of like had a field day and they started like breeding all different types of roses and stuff. So what's special about this Rosa chinensis is that it was capable of blooming repeatedly. So European roses, Europe already had roses, but their roses only bloomed for a very, very short period of time, and it was only once a year. So it was once a year for like a couple of weeks out of the year. That was the only time that you got the bloom. And the Rosa chinensis came in, and now this not only brought different colors, different types of colors of roses, but now we have rose bushes that were blooming multiple times a year. And not only multiple times a year, but for long periods of time, which was like groundbreaking.
nice.
That's the chinesis, by the way. Um, so then these like Asian roses were bred with European roses. We have two very different types of roses being bred. And so these roses were called hybrid teas. And these hybrid teas were part of like the repeat bloomers, the ones that would bloom like multiple times a year for long periods of time. But the hybrid teas are the roses that have multiple colors. So both of these are considered hybrid teas, whereas non like non-hybrid teas typically have one color, right? You have like yellow roses, red roses, pink roses, but the hybrid teas are now blending the colors. Um,
I know one of my favorite flowers, one of my favorite roses is it's my favorite rose and it's a hybrid, I think. I don't know if it's a hybrid tea, but it's called Double Delight.
hmm,
Let me see. I'll find out what it exactly what it is.
yeah.
Double Delight is my favorite.
What color is it?
It is pink, really bright pink and white.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah,
cool.
it's hybrid tea rose. That's it.
Oh, very nice.
Exactly. So yeah, Double Delight is so yes. So it's like this pink and it's pink on the outside and white on the inside. So I'll show you a picture of it. Let me see if I can look if you can see there.
Oh, nice. I saw that's really pretty. I saw this other one that was I don't think that I have it anymore. I've never seen this in person, but I'm obsessed.
Mhm.
Let's see if it comes up real quick. This one. Look at that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. I love it. I don't even know if that's
Wow.
like a real flower. I mean, I guess so, but it's so pretty.
That
These
is
are all pretty, but I love that one.
that is amazing. Oh my gosh, that's like those flowers that sage that we saw that was black.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
like
Oh my gosh.
the flower that's the closest to black is like
Yeah, like the natural, like,
so
yeah,
like
that was
black,
such a
black.
pretty,
Yeah, that was amazing.
yeah, I love that. Okay. So, then we have ancient Egypt. So ancient Egyptians bathed in rose water, and then scattered rose petals to make their rooms smell good. And then in the 5th century BCE, we find that they start using rose balm to anoint the dead, and dried petals were wrapped into the like wrappings or like tucked into the wrappings of mummified bodies. And so we'll talk about the symbolism of that later. So again, as we talked about before, it's to help with the smell, obviously, but there's also some kind of like more like magical reasons for that as well, which we'll talk about later. And then roses were the flowers of the Egyptian goddess Isis. I heard somebody call that sun. Do you pronounce that Isis?
Hmm.
That so do I. Somebody had said it a different way. I can't remember how they said it, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, so okay, so roses. We'll talk about the magical, like why they would tuck it in, but also it's associated with Isis, which is the goddess of love. And so when you're putting, or when the Egyptians were putting rose in the tomb, it also helped signal like the love that the mourners had for their dead because it's associated with like the goddess of love. And so her flower was to show that like they loved the people who had died. Okay, so this is an interesting thing. Um, you can make prayer beads out of rose. And so this is what it looks like. I actually just watched a video on this. We talked about that a couple days ago, but you can take rose petals and you essentially put them in like a blender or a food processor, even better, with like a little bit of water. You blend it up to kind of like a watery pulp, and then you simmer it. You put it stovetop, space it out as much as possible because now it's like a paste after you blend it. Smooth it out as much as possible to get it as thin as possible and simmer it on low for a while. I think it's like, honestly, it's like an hour. And then after that, you put it on to you take it and you roll it into little balls. You pierce through it to make a hole, and then you set in them out for a couple days to dry. And so you can make like prayer beads for like rosaries and stuff with them. However, they were not the typical, um, like, what's the word? They weren't the typical
Material.
material, thank you, for prayer beads. But we start to see after prayer beads had been around for a couple decades at least, that people start making them with roses. And so I still wanted to throw it in. And so prayer beads also, a lot of people are familiar with like malas and rosaries, but a lot of different organized religions have different types of prayer beads. So we do have like the Catholic rosary. I just kind of like wrote some of them down, and then each picture is associated, like it's in order, right? So this is a rosary. This is a, I don't know how you say that, Mekiatia. We have the Wreath of Christ, the Misbaha, the Mala, which is the two different religions, and then the Hapamala. So, anyways, I did want to throw that in there. There is this misconception that the original rosary prayer bead material was roses, and that's not true. Um, Pearl was actually a really common prayer bead material for all of these. Pearl was big. And then a lot of different like stones. But anyways, I did want to throw that in there. Okay, so we have the lore. So according to Greek mythology, the goddess of flowers, which is Troilus, so she created a new flower by breathing life into a woodland nymph who had died. So we have this dead woodland nymph. She breathes into it and they turn into a flower. Then we have Dionysus, who is the god of wine and plant life. He gave this new flower a beautiful perfume, a beautiful smell. And then Aphrodite, who's the goddess of beauty and pleasure, she gave the rose its name, according to legend, by rearranging the letters of her son, Eros. And so rearranged, and she came up with the word rose. Then Eros later gave this new like rose to Harpocrates. I don't know how you say that. Who's the god of silence as a bribe to, what is it?
Harpocrates.
Hippocrates. That sounds better. So he's the god of silence, and so the rose was given to help keep, like, he had knowledge of what the gods were doing that other people didn't know, and so the rose was given to him to keep that a secret, which is where we have Sub Rosa, right, which is keeping the secret.
Yeah.
And so then we can see pretty much this like exact story in, well, not this exact, but very, very similar story in Roman mythology, where we just have the Roman gods instead of the Greek gods. And so I just give like that,
Yeah.
the equivalence here. Also, I want to go a little bit deeper into Aphrodite. So it was believed that Aphrodite came from like sea foam. Um, or so the sea foam that she came from turned into roses. So she comes out of the sea foam, and then what's left of the sea foam turns into roses, white roses, to symbolize like Aphrodite's purity. Then there's this whole story about how there she had heard of this like plot of her Adonis, who's her mortal lover, and she had heard this story that there was a plot to murder him. And so she's like desperate to try to warn him because she loves him. She's desperate. And so she like is running through bushes of these white roses, and she cuts up her ankles and her feet on the thorns of the rose bushes. So she bleeds onto these white roses, which then taints them red. And so this is the association of red roses with eternal devotion.
Oh, wow.
Yes. No, amazing. Okay, so then we have the Hindu belief holds that rose played like a big role in creating mankind. So one day, I'm gonna butcher these names, sorry in advance, but one day the gods Vishnu and Brahma were arguing about which flower is like the most beautiful flower. And Vishnu says the rose. Like that is the best flower. It smells the best, it's the most beautiful, the shape is the best, it's the best. But Brahma had never seen a rose before, and so he chose the lotus. He believed that the lotus flower was the most beautiful flower. And so to persuade Brahma, Vishnu presented him with a rose, and he instantly agreed that the rose. Brahma was like, "Yep, you're right. I'll succeed. Like you're right. The rose is the best." So now Brahma is like enchanted by the rose, and so he conjured up a bush of 108 large roses and then 1,008 small roses. And later, Vishnu uses those roses to form his bride, the goddess Lakshmi.
Oh.
And then this is just a little one. So in Homer's Iliad, rose oil was said to have been used to anoint the body of Hector, the prince of Troy. And then we do have a lot of folklore revolving around the like coloring of white roses and red roses. So white roses often will represent innocence and honesty. We also see some of this talked about in like Jewish stories, which I'm not familiar with, but we have like Zillah. And then red roses represent fury and cruelty sometimes in these folklore, like Hamul, I'm guessing. And then we also can see this in Alice in Wonderland, Lewis and Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, where people were the like cards and Alice were afraid of the Queen's wrath, and so they mistake or no, not the cards, Alice. Yeah, yeah, painting the rose.